Adele Bates, Behaviour and Education Specialist here, and on this vlog I'm looking at how can we ease the problems that we face in our schools and education system. And please note, I'm saying how can we ease the problems rather than how can we find solutions, because in my opinion those are two different things and both are definitely needed, but actually sometimes when we get those muddled up we can actually cause more harm than good. So I've got a story to exemplify this. Hopefully it'll make it a bit more simple. So a few years ago, when I was working in mainstream, I'm an English teacher by trade. It was about 6 weeks before the exam, and I received an email from the senior leadership team saying that some exam reading intervention support had become available for certain students. And these were students that were on particularly worrying target levels, and one of those students was in my class, and I was not surprised because this student was expected to fail his English exams. In fact, he was expected to fail every single one of his GCSE exams. And so on the face of it here, we've got a problem, a student's going to fail his exams, and a solution: let's put in some support. And on paper you can see how that makes a lot of sense. However, of course, there is a backstory to this student. And it will demonstrate the difference between easing a problem and going in and solving it, which was what was happening 6 weeks before the exam. So about a year previous to this, I had inherited this student, and I say inherited because he had started off his GCSE course in another class, and due to disruption and behaviour he'd been moved over to my class. When I met him, he was a very astute and a witty young man, and also actually very self-aware of his abilities and his weaknesses, his achievements, his aspirations, and he kind of knew what was going on, if that makes sense. One of those students who he really could see the lay of the land, and he was quite realistic about it. His reading age was 8 when I met him, and probably most of you will know, most GCSEs now, the minimum reading age, just to understand the paper, is 12. And for English, and especially English literature, it can often be higher than that as well. In addition, when I met this student, he disclosed to me that during his Year 11 GCSE year, he would be missing certain lessons because he was being called as the main witness for an alleged sexual abuse case. And so, I mean, my initial instinct on that is this really the year for him to be doing his GCSEs? But that flexibility wasn't there to delay him in any way. So that was left as that. So my next thought was, okay, well, what can we do? I've got a student here with a reading age of 8. I've got a year, and he's currently expected to fail everything. In addition to this, and this is really unhelpful, and I'm sure some of you know this, he had got an internship at our local football club. Is linked with an organisation that provides an education kind of apprenticeship thing, internship apprenticeship, and they had offered him an unconditional place to do this. So we also have a student who has no motivation whatsoever. He'd managed to get through that through doing some work experience, and they really liked him and had given him this unconditional offer. And so at this point, I felt that it was really important that this student got some support. We're talking about a 15-year-old student with a very low reading age, with either has experienced sexual abuse trauma, or if it is alleged, he was in a position with his mental health that would make him believe that. So, you know, I don't know what the outcome of that case was, but all I knew was here is a vulnerable student who needs our support. And I felt as well, not just in an academic way by any means, he needed it in the emotional mental health trauma side of things as well. So the first thing I did was try and get him that support, and I went to various people up and down the school and was told that support was not available to him. And so, as wonderful as a teacher as I believe I am, I'm also slightly realistic, because I did not believe I could increase his reading age by 4 years and prepare him for 2 GCSEs in English, one of which you have to learn a hell of a lot of quotes and text off by heart for. I just did not feel that during a year that this student would be a witness for the police in such a difficult case, I just did not feel that that would be possible. And so I became quite despairing for a week or two, because I just didn't know how I could help. You know, so the system and the school and the way that our exams are, the objective I was given was to get him to pass this GCSE, and I knew that that was very, very unlikely. Luckily, I happened to meet up with an ex-colleague and a very experienced gentleman, great person to work with, and I presented this problem to him, and I was saying, how do I do it? How do I get him to pass his GCSEs? You know, how is this actually possible when I'm not being given any support to do it? And he asked me this very question. Okay, you're not going to be able to solve this. You are not going to be able to solve this entire infrastructure of exams, how they work, the fact it has to happen now, the fact that he's got to go through this court case. You can't solve any of that. But what can you, his English teacher, do to ease the problem? And that question I could answer. I could help him with his reading. And what it really inspired me about that is that that would not only help his exam chance, but actually that's going to help him in life. And so once a week I set up a lunch, we did lunch, and he came to me once every week for nearly a year, and all we did was read. And I worked on various reading skills and inference, and just helped him to read better. And through that, I obviously got to know the student very well, a bit more about his aspirations and his wish to be a parent one day. And this was a really strong thing for him. He really wanted to be a parent. So we discussed, okay, would you like your children to read? And what do you think that means for you? You need to improve your reading. So that was a great piece of motivation. Oh, sorry, that's my Nokia brick beeping. So we did that for a year, and then we run up to this 6 weeks before the GCSE when I get this email saying, oh, there's some support for him now. And you can start to see why at this point that's not that helpful, because I have been giving him that support like so many teachers up and down the country in my own time. I have been giving him that support, and I know where he's at. And by this stage, maybe he'd got to a reading age of 9, but really nothing more than that. However, I did know at this time there was another student in my class who was what I'd call, I'm old money, a CD borderline. And I knew that she, unfortunately, did not have any support for academia at home. And yet she was capable. Every so often she was getting a B in some of her work. And I just thought, if there was just somebody for this last 6 weeks who could help her with her revision, her focus, her overall strategy and preparation for exams, we could really help her do really, really, really well. And I said, is there any way that we can use that support for her? That would be exactly what she needs right now. And of course, you've guessed it, I wasn't allowed to do that, because the support that was available was only for these students who were potentially going to fail their GCSEs. And so in that story, I think we just have this fantastic example of really well-meaning people trying to solve problems, however, without knowing the exact situation it doesn't help often. And we all know this when government initiatives come out and say, okay, so this is how education needs to be from right now on, or this is the pedagogy we need to follow, or this is the behaviour, or if we're lucky, here's a load of money to do this with. It may work for some people in some circumstances with some pupils on a blue moon on a Wednesday, you know, but actually we need to spend some time understanding the problems and easing those problems so that when we know that, the solutions are going to be working for that problem, and really for that problem, because we know what's going on. I've got lots of other examples, but I think we'll end it there. But I'd love to know from your point of view, when you've experienced maybe the unfortunate new initiatives, that's often a kind of solution-based thing, that has been really well-meaning, but just hasn't got to the nub of the problem of what needs solving in the first place. I would love to know if you've had some successes as well. When have you managed to actually really understand the problem so that when you find that solution, it has worked? I would love to hear more about what you know. So you can get me on Twitter at Adele J Bates. That's Adele J Bates. And if you haven't already, I've got a new leadership free video series on how to support your staff to manage challenging behaviour in the classroom. So do come and join that community if you're not already over there. I look forward to hearing your stories, and I shall see you soon. Thank you.